back, everybody. Mic is on. You can hear me. No technical difficulties. I'm already happy. We are really honored today to have two leaders who, you have a hard act to follow from last night with Mark Wahlberg, but you guys can do your best. We have over there on my far left is David O'Reilly, who is the head of Howard Hughes, and we are really blessed to have Ravi Ahuja. Did I do that right?
Said it exactly right.
Who's the president and CEO of Sony Pictures. Gentlemen, welcome to IndyFest. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
Go ahead, you can clap. So, this project that is proposed for Summerlin, which being a Summerlin resident, I think is probably a good idea. 31 acres near town center and 215. People are familiar with it. Let me start with you, Mr. O'Reilly, and ask you this. How did this come about? Did this idea occur to you? Did you get a call from Mr. Ahuja saying this sounds like a good idea for Summerlin? Talk about the genesis of this.
Well, Sony had been working on this for a long time, going back to the prior governor's administration. I was unaware of it. And when Mr. Wahlberg moved here, I read an article in one of the local papers that he wanted to start filming here. I called the summit where he lives and said, I need to meet Mark. 3 days later, I flew out and met Mark. I said, here's the site. We want to build your studio. We're going to invest as much as it takes to build it. He called Tony right there, the departing CEO of Sony. I flew back in the following Monday, 3 days later. We shook hands, and we were in Carson City in 2 weeks pitching a bill.
So
it's a solid 10-day gestation period.
But let's talk about, you skipped one part, and let me tell you the part you skipped, and that is why you thought this was a good idea for you and for Las Vegas.
The most important part of my role as CEO of Howard Hughes is attracting new businesses into Southern Nevada, into Las Vegas, into growing the economic diversity of this area. And our goals are lofty. I believe that Southern Nevada, Las Vegas Valley, Summerlin can be the STEM capital of the world. Now, I define it differently than most people. I say science, technology, entertainment, and media, because those are the industries that are easily transferable from the skill set and employee base that lives here today. What we need is that catalyst. We need that spark that's going to create that snowball rolling downhill. And I think the partnership with Sony and the studio is exactly that spark that will make this more than just the sports capital of the world, but the sports, technology, entertainment, and media capital of the world.
What do you have against engineering and math? I don't get it.
I think that I would love more technology, engineering, and math companies to come here. I want to leverage the existing employee base. And when I think about the type of workers that we need, 15,000 new jobs in these studios, we're going to leverage that existing skill set that works on the Strip today, that exists in the Southern Valley, that we can bring out to these studios to fill those jobs locally.
I see even my lame attempts at humor are not going to slow you down from selling
not at
this
all.
thing. I see that. So now it's your turn, sir. Tell me about why Las Vegas, why Hollywood East should be right here.
Why it should be here? Yeah. I mean, look, there's no shortage of tax credit programs. There are 110 in the world. There are 47, I think, in North America. So there's a huge number. But we're particularly attracted to developing the industry here for a number of different reasons, right? One is proximity to Southern California, right? Currently, we have productions in places like Georgia that are very far away. We think it's attractive to top talent. You heard it from Mark, attractive to top talent to work here, right? So that's the first thing. The second is we think that we're really ready to go. There's already a base of talent here. There's already a base of talent here that can start working immediately, right? This is a showbiz town. So you have people who know sound, clearly people know lighting, people who know all kinds of things that are vital to our industry. So we're ready to go, right? The weather is good for filmmaking. It's sunny today, right?
It gets hot,
It gets hot. Yeah. It gets hot, right? But there are lots of locations to shoot. So we think that there's a lot there that makes it compelling as well. So for a lot of reasons, we think that this is a great location.
It was interesting. I thought one of the interesting things that Mark Wahlberg said during our conversation was talking about making this more permanent, that the
Yeah.
people already live here or would want to live here, that the infrastructure would be more permanent, and maybe unlike a place like Georgia. And by the way, the headline of this already is Sony guy says Nevada is better than Georgia. So make sure everybody gets. I'm kidding. I'm not trying to cause you a problem. But seriously,
Yeah.
that is unusual, right? That was actually really fascinating that he said that.
The infrastructure piece.
And just that, people will live here permanently.
Yeah.
They're not transient jobs,
Yeah.
which we are used to
Yeah.
here in Vegas.
You need that. You need people to be local. And some of these programs around the world, when it's always about flying people in, it doesn't really work, right? The cost of doing that, because you get hundreds of people who work on a production or a TV production or a movie. So if you're flying people in, it doesn't work. You need people to be local. So that's critical. And then the infrastructure part is very important as well. You need a place to make the content. So, those are the ingredients that make programs like this work.
So, Mr. O'Reilly, let me show you something you saw in, I wouldn't call it a local newspaper. I'd call it the best news site in Nevada, the only statewide news site. It's a little place I like to call the Nevada Independent.
Independent, yeah, I'm very familiar.
Let me show you something let me read something that you said. You said, we now have a generational opportunity to diversify and grow our state's economy. A major global media corporation, Sony Pictures Entertainment, stands ready to partner with us at Howard Hughes to privately finance a $1.8 billion project that includes production studio space as well as a robust mixed-use component with retail, commercial, and hospitality offerings, driving a broad mix of tax revenue for state and local governments. Okay, you may be more optimistic than Brian Sandoval, who was on before you, and I didn't think I'd ever meet anybody more optimistic, but did you come up with this whole, the mixed use, the 1.8, did you come up with that in 2 weeks too, or how long did it take you to come up with that?
Oh, we've been working on that since the day we met, because it's not just about the studio, it's the ancillary benefits and all those things that our residents need that make Summerlin a great place to live, work, and play that we need to continue to build. And having that incremental retail opportunities, hospitality, office, in and around the studios, those complementary uses are what's going to create such a dynamic environment at that 100-acre site. Now, the numbers themselves, I can't come up with those. I'm not nearly smart enough, but Guy Hobbs and his group are tremendous at this. They're truly independent, and I think the best in the state at economic analysis, and that's why we asked him to take a hard look at this and our plans to see what the real impact would be to the economic growth here.
Give us, if you can, paint us, if you can, a picture so people have a better idea, I have a better idea, what this would look like. You're talking about the mixed use. The studio is the centerpiece, and what's around it?
Well, the studio itself is 500,000 square feet.
Yeah.
It's large boxes where you've got entire homes that are built inside, mill workers, costume, et cetera. In and around that, on the front door, right on Town Center Drive, we're talking about a retail development with restaurants, shopping, dining, great amenities for our local residents and great amenities for those that are visiting the studios. There's sites there for incremental hospitality opportunities, for incremental hotel rooms, for those that will be flying in and out, filming in front of the camera, as well as we just built our second office development down there at One Meridian, where we think that we have a great opportunity to bring in some more office-using tenants and more jobs into Summerlin.
Is there anything analogous to this that Sony has ever done? In other words, going into a community, building a studio, and then having a mixed use around it that has worked?
We haven't done mixed use before. We have studios in different places around the world. I mean, I'll give you one that we bought recently, a production company we bought in Wales. So we have a 9-stage, I think it's 9 stages. I haven't actually even been there in Wales. So we have different places where we have studios, because obviously we make content around the world. But we haven't done mixed use before. But look, we think we're an investor in the project, and we think it'd be great.
So let's talk about the controversial part of this, which is the tax credits that the legislature is probably going to consider. Here's what some people might say. Not that I'm some people, but I'm going to say it anyhow. Here you have these two huge companies, hugely successful companies, Howard Hughes Properties and Sony. They want to build this project that will benefit them and may benefit the community. Why don't you guys just pay for it yourselves?
Take the first
He
part of
points
that.
to you right away.
No, there's two parts to this.
No, look, I think
Maybe I'll
that's a
take the first
great,
part.
I would ask myself that question.
Yeah.
And I think, John, that speaks to some of the confusion that I've seen and heard around this bill. We are paying for it ourselves.
Yes.
I'm investing $1.8 billion building that mixed-use development and not getting a single dollar tax credits. Ravi's going to spend $100 million a year for 10 years filming movies, hiring ancillary services outside of that $100 million, transportation, mill workers, costume, et cetera. And it's not until all of that money is spent that a small portion of tax credit is earned against what has been spent.
Right.
So this is not tax dollars coming away from mental health, preschool education, other areas of the state. It's a reserve that's set aside against economic development that will come out of the building of the studios and the filming that's there.
Right.
And once that's all spent, there's a tax credits earned. So there's growth beyond the tax credit going out into the economy, creating incremental revenue to the state before any credit is earned.
Yeah, and no credit is earned if the money isn't spent. So if we build a facility and nothing ever happens,
I've lost $1 billion.
Hopefully you're a better businessman than
Well, this is why we're here, and this is why we're helping to educate our constituents, our residents on Summerlin, educate our legislature, so that it's clear that this bill is not like so many other bills that have been done in this state where it's a credit for building a stadium or a credit for building something. This is, we put the money in to build the physical real estate. Ravi puts the money in to film the movies, and then there's a potential credit earned.
So you're saying the Allegiant Stadium deal was a bad deal?
I didn't say it was a bad deal. I said
that was just too easy, sir.
Yeah.
So don't give me that kind of opening. But let's really be honest about this, though, because yes, it's going to be privately financed. That is true, and maybe people think that as this is being built, that the tax credits are going to be given. That's not true. You're right. You have to invest some money to get the tax credits.
Some money may be a little bit of an understatement, John, but okay.
yeah, quite a lot.
So, but once the tax credits start accruing to you and you take, that is taking money from state tax dollars. Yes?
Assuming that the tax revenue isn't going up from the spending of hundreds of millions of dollars a year.
That is an argument to counter,
Oh,
and I
yes.
understand that.
If you assume that these studies are entirely incorrect, and we're not going to create $2.8 billion of annual economic development, and we're not going to create $2.8 billion of development from the economic impact from the physical development of the studios, if you think that all of those numbers are fictional, sure, you can take that argument. But I can tell you that all the evidence supports the other side of that equation.
I think so, and I think probably the biggest piece of evidence are all the programs that exist, right? And the number of them that are expanded. In the last 3 years, 21 programs have been expanded around the U.S. So
You're talking about film tax credits.
Yeah.
Well, but they haven't worked in some places. There have been studies in New York and in
Certainly, John,
Georgia
absolutely.
that show that maybe some of these promises that have been made have not been kept. But I first I want to say, in case Mr. O'Reilly is going to say this and I'm going to get in trouble, I've known Guy Hobbs probably a lot longer than you have. He is a total pro. I'm not saying he's making up numbers. I'm talking about the long-term economic impact for the state and for the city.
yeah, Georgia recently expanded its program. So I think, again, you'd have studies that say things either way, but proof's in the pudding, right? If they've expanded the program, odds are it's working for them. Look, I think there are programs that can work and programs that don't work. I think the factors are, it's what factors make it work, right? That it's long-term, so that you can develop a local industry, so that you can, the studios like mine can plan. When you make a television show, it goes for 8 to 10 years. So you'd like to know that program's in place for a long time. So it needs to be long-term. There needs to be physical infrastructure. And there needs to be a local crew base. And that last piece is really important. There are programs around the world, Middle East has some programs that are incredibly lucrative. And we wouldn't send a US production there, but we make shows, for example, in Europe and in India and places like that. We tend not to use those programs because there's no local crew, and you've got to fly a crew in continually. So you need those elements, and when those factors are there, when those things are present, it usually works, right? I mean, I think it works all the time, but I'm going to say usually because I don't know exactly. But it is an economic development program, and done right, it works well.
How is the one that, excuse me, that you're proposing here, the film tax credit bill, different from ones that exist in other states? Is it different?
Yeah, no, I think that they're all unique. They all have their own little quirks. I think what we've done here is try to take a best of compilation. Required production coming from Sony. Required physical infrastructure coming from Sony and Howard Hughes in building the studios. And required local talent. After 3 years, 50% of the people that work on these sets that are the below the line workers have to be local to earn the credit. And we're investing, as part of this project, $8 million with Nevada partners to build a training facility to ensure that we have that talent locally to work and so that we can earn those credits.
And there is another proposal you might have heard about. I forget the company's. Do you remember the company's name? Can you say the name? Are you able to?
Warner Brothers.
Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
So, and I talked a little bit with another optimistic guy, Mark Wahlberg, last night about whether these are competing proposals. You can play in the same sandbox. The legislature is going to be confronted with all of this lobbying and all of this, all these numbers, and you're expecting essentially people who are laymen, who are citizen legislators to some extent, to make a decision that's a very complicated decision. And by the way, I think has all the potential that you gentlemen are talking about to be great for this state and for this community. Aren't you worried that there's two competing proposals? Do you talk to anybody at Warner Brothers?
Oh, about a lot of different things, right? We make a lot of their shows, but we haven't talked about this. So I don't know the details of their proposal here, right? I mean,
You should read the Nevada Independent. It's free.
Yeah, is it free?
It's free.
Okay, I was going to ask for a subscription, but if it's free,
It's free.
So I don't know. It's hard for me to comment on their particular plan. We've been at this a really long time. I know that they've shown up recently, so we feel we're ready to go. And that we can do something really great, right? So we believe in our plan. I'm not here to compete with their plan. Their plan may be perfectly fine, but we think ours is great, and we've been at it a long time.
Well, let me show you what you said to Variety, Mr. O'Reilly, when they wrote about this. They said Warner Brothers is a bigger studio and is proposing a bigger project with a higher volume of film and TV production. Senator Roberta Lang, she was the sponsor of the last film tax credit. She's sponsoring it this time again for them. You have a different sponsor. Argued in a statement that Warner Brothers, quote, ability to keep the studios full starting from day one is a key difference maker. Is she right?
I don't think so.
No.
Look, I think that our project is shovel ready. We're going to have this thing built as soon as we get the green light. We're not going to have any problem filling our studio. We have a great partner with an incredible balance sheet that I know is going to be here for the long term in Sony. Look, I don't know the details of that project. It's very new, as Ravi said, but I do know the details of ours. I know the size of our studio. I know the economic impact it's going to create. I know that we're shovel ready, permits just ready to pull with all the variances approved by Clark County. And I know that it's a partnership between an incredible production company and a local company that's been here for 34 years, about to celebrate 35 years of Summerlin next year, that's developed 200 miles of trails, 36 schools, dozens of police and fire stations, that's been committed to this community for 35 years and will be committed to this community for the next 100. Because our employees live here, our kids go to school here, and we know that this is going to accrue to the long-term benefit of Southern Nevada.
You know a little bit more, to your detriment probably, than your proposed partner here about Nevada politics. You went up there for this film tax credit bill that kind of was there and then it disappeared at the end in 2023. Is there any way to just coalesce these into one proposal, or do you just see this as that let's go up there and fight it out?
Oh, I think anything's possible. My crystal ball's been broke for a long time, John. If I could tell you how this is going to play out over the next 6 months, we wouldn't have any point in chatting here today. I think anything's possible, and we're open to every and any possibility to help grow the economy here. That's our goal. We want to see the diversification of this economy. We have seen what happened during the global financial crisis, during COVID, when the lights on the Strip dim, and the impact of Southern Nevada and all of the state is tremendous. Now, when COVID came and the lights were dim on the Strip, production was filming. Content was never more important. And to have that balance, that diversification of the economy is what matters most. And if we can achieve that, I'm for any bill, any plan, together, apart, whatever works to achieve that goal.
Would you say it's probably unlikely, though, that there'd be some kind of big announcement of a partnership with Sony and Warner Brothers to do this?
Look, I think really it comes down to the appetite of the legislature. And this is their first real foray into a meaningful tax credit bill.
I thought that was last time, the one.
Well, there's been small bills that have been
Yeah.
done that haven't required infrastructure, that haven't required local talent, but I think this is a real bill. This is the first one. And I do think that my read of being in Carson City is that we want to crawl, walk, run, and start small, prove it out, make sure it works, see the benefit, and then potentially grow over time. So I don't think this is limited to one or the other. I think this is, as Mark said last night, not a question of if, but when. And then as you prove it out, you can grow it over time and add incremental facilities.
What's what's the best case timeline for this to happen?
Session comes back, it's approved, shovels go in the ground. Right, 18 to 24 month development period, and content starting to get shot immediately after that.
Yeah.
So there's really not a credit that would be earned or offset against anything in the budget for at least a couple of years, and that's fast tracking it with a shovel-ready project.
So tell me about, from Sony's perspective,
Yeah.
let's assume best case for you guys, this is built. What kind of stuff happens there?
Oh, we've constantly got new shows and new movies coming along, right? So we do in total across the world 200 television shows. It's about 100 in the United States. We do about 15 movies a year. So any given year, it's 15 new movies and call it 60 new television shows. So there are always going to be potential candidates. So if we fast forward ahead a couple of years, I can't even tell you today what they are, but there will certainly be shows and movies that can be done here.
But why would, I guess I'm more interested in, like, why would you choose to do a certain project in Vegas that you could do somewhere else?
It depends on a lot of different things. I mean, this goes to one of the reasons why this is attractive to us, because you could argue from a Sony point of view, their tax credit programs all over the place. Why do we care? Why is this interesting to us? Well, one of those foundational things is that talent likes to work close to home or in a place that's attractive. So we think making shows and movies here is more attractive than other places. We'll say that.
Like Georgia? Are
No,
you
Georgia's-
dissing
That was
Georgia
very
again?
politically correct.
Georgia's beautiful. No, really. I mean, there are a lot of other places that stuff is made, right? Like even Toronto is beautiful, but it's far away for a talent that lives in Los Angeles. And that's a factor in making a show, is that it works for your high-end talent. So there are that's one reason. There are many others. I mean, there's also just the physical location. We made a show for Netflix called Obliterated that, without a tax credit, that's set in Las Vegas. So we need to be in Las Vegas. So there's a lot of different factors that go into it. But I have no doubt that we'll be able to find many, many candidates to be made here.
You know, it's interesting. Another thing that Mark Wahlberg brought up last night was that he's talked to a lot of his friends, and including friends in the entertainment industry, who he's told them how much he likes living here, the differences between living here and the tax structure, probably part of it, and in LA. Do you think you see a migration? Like, let's suppose this is successful. I mean, I keep calling it Hollywood East. Some people say Hollywood 2.0. Is this just the seed and then things flower from there?
I think that, yes, I think that'll happen, right? I think people will be attracted to it.
Show me how that happens.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I don't know exactly how, but I think some people will be attracted to coming here from California, but I think most of it's going to be local, right? I think that's what you got to develop the local base, because new people come in and out of a business. So I don't know if that answers your question, John. I think it's, there'll be a lot of jobs here. People will want to be based here. I don't think we'll get a lot of people going back and forth. We probably will initially, but then I think you get less of that. Is that what you meant? I don't know if I answered you.
Well, I mean, I'm just trying to imagine how it develops from here. Go ahead.
Absolutely. When you think about 15,000 permanent jobs that will be created as a result of this studio, I think a lot of them will get filled locally, And those jobs have an average wage of over 110,000, which is double the average salary today, almost double of 58,000.
So tell me about those jobs, since you mentioned 15,000. I mean, you're saying that's a big number.
Oh, man, we have lighting. I mean, probably.
Yeah, right. You've got, you've got people who are doing hair and makeup, you've got lighting, you've got people who work cameras, you've got, your local restaurants, you've got all kinds of things. I mean, you're essentially building an entire world when you make a production. On a television show, for example, you've got 500 people who work around a large, high-budget television show. So it's everything you can imagine. It's security, it's people driving, it's trucks, it's, it's...
15,000 seems huge, though.
Oh, yeah. Well, 500 on one show, right?
Yeah, no, you're filming multiple over time,
Yeah.
and it's every tangential industry that's being impacted. High average wages, and certainly it will attract people to move here. It's already attractive to move here. We see over 30% of our new home buyers in Summerlin are coming from out of state. And they're coming for a lot of reasons. I mean, low taxes. If they're coming from California, twice the house for half the price. They're coming for safety and security. They're coming for great educational opportunities, connectivity to nature, Red Rock conservation land. There's a million reasons why they're coming here, but great jobs, high-paying jobs adds to that. And important is we have to have the infrastructure to support those residents that will come here and those existing residents that will work in the studios. We have 3,000 acres that we're ready to go to sell to home builders that is the next 15 years of home supply, right? As Howard Hughes, we're not just a builder of a studio, we're a builder of the entire community. We're building the schools, we're building the police, we're building the fire to support these new jobs, these new people that want a better quality of life and have that available to them here in Summerlin.
This is for either one of you or both of you. Without the film tax credit bill, does that just mean it doesn't pencil out financially for you?
I'll answer that question from a production point of view. No, it doesn't. Because anytime you're making these really high budget shows or movies, there needs to be a tax credit. In the few examples, like I mentioned the one that I was talking about with Netflix, in those few examples, you can do part of it here then, but then you'll do the rest of the show in Vancouver, for example. So that really is a part of making these very expensive shows. So I can't envision doing a lot without that.
No tenant, no studio. We can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
We have to go find the next catalyst. We have to go find the next industry to diversify our economy. And I don't know where that is. I'm not stopping knocking on doors, but we think this is the best opportunity that we've seen in the last 15 years.
But the tax credit, that means it's a significant amount of money, right? If you're saying it can't pencil out without it.
Yeah.
And that is a significant, I go back to this just because I just want to push one more time, because this is the question you're going to be asked. I'm giving you kind of a dry run for the legislature, and I'll probably be harder than a lot of them. They'll love this. But that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money, or you wouldn't say it doesn't pencil out without it. And that is ultimately a lot of money that could go somewhere else in a state that is known for not funding services to the level they should be.
It's certainly a lot of money, but if I'm Ravi and I have the opportunity to film anywhere in the world, why do I go film where there's not a tax credit? Why do these other states have tax credits and expand them year after year after year? Because they see the benefits. They've seen the growth that's come for the past decade. And it's time that we see those benefits here as well.
I guess it's how you define benefit, right? I mean, if you're saying to just a person who works in a grocery store or a service worker of any kind, how this is going to benefit you, what do you say?
If you own a local catering business, if you're a local hair salon,
more money gets spent.
More money is getting spent in your store.
But that doesn't answer the question. With all due respect,
Please.
I'm talking about the actual workers. Are you going to guarantee that if it helps the hair salon, they're going to pay their hairdressers more? Are they going to pay the people who work in the grocery stores or the nail salon more if it's helping them?
They'll need more employees, right? In the end, they'll have to pay them for more hours because there's more work, right? The money finds its way through the economy. That's the essence of economic development. You have to believe that. If you don't believe it, then...
Let's just hunker in. Yeah, we don't need any growth of the economy.
No,
But if you believe
that's not what don't put words in my mouth.
If there's demand for more hair, more mill workers, more electricians, either people fill those jobs
Yeah.
are the people that get paid more to do it. We see it all the time in Sutherland. When we're building 1,000 homes a year, all of a sudden there's massive construction projects on the Strip. Every electrician on the job gets up, walks off, and now
Yeah.
they're getting paid more down there.
Yeah.
Because there's demand for those jobs. And what this does is create demand for all different jobs throughout the valley. There's demand for more services, either those people that work there get paid more, or we hire more people to do it, and we're creating more jobs.
Well, I mean, as an example, you have the Super Bowl here, right? And there's a lot of expense that the city takes on, right? That the region takes on when the Super Bowl happens. But a huge amount of spending finds its way through the economy. It's a smaller version of that, right? I was just saying earlier this week, we wrapped Shark Tank in Los Angeles. We wrapped Shark Tank, and we had a party for the cast, well, like a lunch for the cast. And a local pizza shop got a $1,700 order. For some reason, I know this. Right? It's that over and over and over again in the local economy.
Was Mark Cuban at the party, or was he campaigning?
was.
Was he campaigning for?
He was, but I don't think he had any pizza.
I guess what I'm wondering again, I think the name for this is trickle-down economics. That's what I remember. I'm old enough to remember when that term was first
That's
used.
a little different.
Yeah, I know. See, I didn't think you'd let me get away with
No,
it. But
That's different. That's people at the top make more and
Yeah,
at the bottom.
yeah, good.
But anyway.
All right. But I guess what I'm wondering is, and this is, I promise this is the last time I'm going to bring this up, maybe.
I don't buy
and that is that in some of the other states that we've talked about, they've done studies where showing it hasn't worked the way that you guys are saying it is going to work. And the question I have is, what makes us different?
Well, those same states have plenty of studies that show that it does work, which is why they're expanding the program. But this program is different because it requires content, it requires physical infrastructure, and it requires local employees.
Right.
And it's an industry that doesn't exist here today in an economy that should have been diversified decades ago. And now's the chance to really do it and do it right. That's why it's different.
Yep.
You can ask again.
No, I thought
I'll
he
say
might
the
want
same
to
thing.
chime.
You pull a string in my back, and
No,
boom,
that's right,
we'll
and
just
it's-
spit it out again.
from our
You are relentless, man. I mean, you are more difficult.
There's a
than
reason
most-
you sat me
you
over
are more,
here.
Yeah, you are more difficult
Yeah, I
than most
was wondering
politicians
that.
I've interviewed. But go
I
on.
was wondering why.
That's a compliment, by the way.
But yeah, look, I mean, from our point of view, it's a long-term program. It's in a state where, as I said earlier, where there's already a base of people who can work on the projects, and then it can just grow from there. So there are a lot of reasons why Nevada in particular is attractive. As I said, we can take our, productions anywhere, right? There are tax credit programs all over. This state is more attractive to us. We think it has a much better hand.
Because
Because of its location, because you already have people in place. We're talking about a program that's long-term with a facility. So those are all the ingredients that make it attractive. And we think for us, the real return is some projects, right? You've got particular talent, say somebody like Mark, who wants to work on it, but they're not interested in going to a foreign country or going to a state that's far from home, right? Nevada works really well for them.
So I'm interested in kind of looking at the macro question here about both of your industries, and let me start with you.
Yeah.
Talk about, film tax credits are a relatively new phenomenon, and Sony's been around for a long time, as is Howard Hughes. Talk about how the business has changed for Sony and why this has become part and parcel of what you do now.
Yeah, I mean, generally content's become very expensive. There's enormous demand, right? All of us watch a lot. There's enormous demand. So, shows, movies have become much more expensive over time. So that's the competitive pressure. And it's not just made expensive because you're just paying people a lot more. It's the scale of production is bigger, right? You're doing stuff that, is in different time periods. You have to create a universe of the 1920s in New York, right? Or you're using a lot of special effects or those kinds of things that just put a lot of pressure on making more and more expensive shows. And it's we as viewers who create that because we want that, right? So that's the underlying thing that's happening in the industry. It's interesting, in our industry, a lot of people talk about how there's pressure on the business. If you step back and look at our industry, the revenue just keeps growing and people keep consuming more content. So what's creating the pressure? It's we have to spend so much to draw in the audiences. So that's what's at work overall. And that's our competitive pressure. and making these shows. Right? People think studios are these incredibly profitable machines. They're actually not. The profit margins aren't that big, right? In the end, you can make a profit, but the profit margins aren't that big because the cost side is pretty big.
That's what the gaming industry guys here always say too.
Yeah.
When they're trying to get stuff through the ledger. Never mind.
That's what happens in a competitive business, right?
But it is interesting because I don't know a lot about this. I know a little bit about it because I'm kind of a movie nut, and I read a lot of people who write about this stuff. But the change, I mean, you and I couldn't 20 years ago, whatever the right time frame, imagine what streaming was, right?
I know.
People went to a movie theater to see a movie, and maybe 20 years from now or 10 years from now, it's gonna, I mean, it may change again, right? In sense that the people are just not going to go to movies maybe eventually.
Yeah, I don't quite think that's the case, right? I think there's definitely the bar for theatricality, as we call it, right? What makes a movie worthy of being in a theater is higher than it used to be because there's so much you can watch on streaming.
Right.
Right? So it's just a lot harder to make a movie work in a theater. But people love the movie-going experience. I mean, you see how big a movie is when it works well. We see that, and several of the movies we've made, do really, really well. We've got Venom coming, and we think it'll do really great. We just had It Ends With Us a couple of months ago, which is a very serious movie, but it did incredibly well. We've even gone farther than that. We actually acquired a small, high-end movie theater chain called Alamo Drafthouse a few months ago, and it's doing great. So in the right environment, with the right movies, movie-going, theater-going, still very strong. But the bar's higher because you can watch on streaming.
Would you agree with me that 4DX is the worst thing that's ever happened to movies? Because my stepdaughter makes me go see some of these movies. It's the worst experience of my life.
Yeah, it can be. Right. I think sometimes you just want the same old experience you've had. Our Alamo Drafthouse is great because you can eat and you can have drinks.
I've heard great things about that, by the way.
Really great.
People, how many cities is that in, by the way?
There's 40 total locations, a number of cities. There's some in, it's probably like 20, 25 cities. But we're expanding, right? So
can you make that part of the build that they guarantee you will build one of those here too?
Yeah, we haven't even talked about that, but we'll do that.
Okay, all right.
Okay, done.
So let me ask you, Mr. Oil, Howard Hughes is a venerable name, obviously going back to the guy who was here and was a real player back in the 60s and the 70s. And talk about how your business has changed, that this becomes an opportunity that you get stars in your eyes and you're thinking this is the thing to really diversify this economy, which, by the way, they've been talking about diversifying the economy here for as long as I've been here, and I've been here for 40 years. So talk about how your business has changed too in that way.
Well, I think our business here, it really revolves around Summerlin and 22,000 acres. And as any master plan community builds, initially it's residential and it's a bedroom community for jobs elsewhere. And then you hit an inflection point where you create your own jobs there, your own city center there, your own shopping there, like we have in downtown Summerlin, with 3 office buildings that are now entirely full. And our job is to continue to grow Summerlin to, over the next 20 years, something like one of our other communities, the Woodlands, which is north of Houston, where we have over 1.5 jobs per rooftop. And that's what we want here as well. But to do that, we have to attract businesses. We have to attract companies that have high-paying jobs into our community to give them that quality of life that they can't find in other places.
How does the movie theater in downtown Summerlin do?
It does well.
Does it?
It does.
And downtown Summerlin, it seems to me, some people thought it was a crazy idea when it was first built, but I can't even get I go there a lot. I can't even get a parking space there. I assume it's still doing pretty well.
We're hitting all-time highs on sales per feet. We're hosting more and more events. I'm sure you've been to our Halloween parades, Fridays and Saturday nights in downtown Summerlin, and seen the thousands of people that come out to enjoy that sense of community that makes this such a great place to live and raise a family. And
you believe that a project like this, and I'm not going to let you be an evangelist again for that this is the economic development model.
Yeah.
Why is this different than some other business coming here in terms of the synergies that it might create?
Oh, absolutely. Because when you think about those that work in a studio, the skill set is highly transferable than what we have on the Strip already with the entertainment already and the skill set that's there. I have a much easier time, I shouldn't say much easier, but I've had an easier time working with Sony and other production companies, convincing them that this is a great place to film, than I have recruiting technology companies out of the San Francisco Bay Area, right? Because they look at our Southern Nevada and say, well, where's that skilled labor going to come from the next 10 years? And it's not as deep as it is in some of the other cities like Phoenix or Austin, where you have University of Texas, University of Phoenix, where are massive universities where they can hire for the next 10 years. Here, those technology companies have a tougher time envisioning themselves here. We're going to win. We're going to get them. It's just going to take a minute. But for now, we can focus on entertainment and media as those first catalysts before we chase that next wave of science and technology.
What is the, I mean, both of you, I think, have said about it's a natural because some of these talents, these kinds of jobs still already exist in the Strip. You have people who can,
Yeah.
are they really the same kinds of jobs? I mean, they're in the entertainment industry, but are they the same kinds
Some
of
of them.
jobs?
I mean, some of them, things like hair and makeup, sound, lighting, are very, very similar. Some things obviously are different. Cinematographers are different. So some things are very different, but there's a good base to start from, right? And sometimes a lot of people who do one thing know another thing, right? So you have that as well.
And I think we heard it last night firsthand from Mark. When he came here to film Family Plan, he was overwhelmed with the quality of talent that existed here already.
And is it the kind of thing where you think that the talent pool that is here already exists, or are there going to be a lot of people that are going to move here just because they want to be part of Hollywood East?
I think some will move here, right? But I think you've got a lot here already, and a lot more can be developed. Right? I don't know the exact percentages, but I think it'll be a combination, certainly initially.
Will there still be a Hollywood, or will
Oh, yeah.
you think?
Yeah, I think so.
How-
I think so. The industry's big enough. There'll be less production there, though, right? I mean, clearly, the production's getting spread out a lot more.
Can we get a Hollywood sign like put up in Red Rock Canyon or something like that? So it says Hollywood East or Hollywood. Can you get that done?
Now, we don't do billboards in Summerlin.
That is good. All right, gentlemen, this has been a great discussion. I am sure I will see you in Carson City. You're going to come. You're going to actually come to Carson City.
Sure, I've been.
He was there last year.
Yeah, I was there
2 years ago. 2 years ago. when we
Were you there?
Yeah, I was
Were you
there.
there?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you're going to go back. I'm
Yeah.
not just talking about the weather. It might be cold, but have you dealt with these people before?
I did then.
It's a
did?
pleasure.
Yeah.
Oh,
Part of-
stop it.
no,
Pleasure.
honestly,
You've been telling the truth up until this point.
John, it's incumbent on both of us to take the time to educate everybody on the benefits. And if we're not willing to do that, we don't deserve to have our bill heard.
Well, unfortunately, and this may come as a shock to you, things are not always decided on the merits in Carson City.
Listen, I'm going to take the optimistic view that Mark had last night, and I believe that the right outcome will prevail because this is what's best for all the residents here now.
I was going to wrap this up, but just one more question. How do you lay the groundwork for that? Because anyone knows that if you want to get something passed in any legislative body, whether it's Congress or a state legislature, you can't just show up. And to some extent, that was the issue last time, in that it came up late, and right? And you've got to, you used the term educate. I will say that it's more of a PR campaign, whether it's fluff or real. I don't want to argue about that in terms of, I'm talking about in general before the
Don't
legislature.
get accused of fluff off,
You have
John,
you have
but
the
thank you.
groundwork laid beforehand. Are you doing that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Both of our organizations have locked arms for almost 2 years now to make sure that we are taking every step that we think is necessary and thoughtful to help get this to the goal line. We can push it as far as we can. We just can't push it over the goal line ourselves. And we have a team of incredible people working behind the scenes at both our organizations that are dedicating an overwhelming majority of their lives to this effort.
Well, I mean, besides appearing at the most important event in the state today to get the message out. What I meant really is are you meeting with legislators? Are you meeting with community leaders? Are you, to use your term, educating them that this is not something going to rip money out of the state budget, these kinds of things?
Absolutely, and I read something in a great publication recently, I think it was the Nevada Independent, about the coalition that we've put together to help us procure the materials and labor that's going into building this studio. And that's the tip of the iceberg in terms of the efforts that we've put forward with legislature, with the governor, with the other business leaders here in Southern Nevada, with all of the diverse interests that exist here, to make sure that we're addressing all of the needs and making this the best possible outcome for everyone involved.
Are you meeting with people too? Are you talking to people from Sony?
I did. I talked with our coalition of community groups. I think that was a week or two ago. So yeah, we are as well. It's important to us.
You guys think the governor's supportive of this?
I do.
You've talked to him?
A number of times, and whether it's around this or other efforts that we have in Summerlin, I think he's been a great thought leader. We enjoyed partnering with him in the economic development around the Super Bowl and bringing in business leaders and CEOs from around the country to see the quality of life that exists here and the quality of opportunity to relocate their business. And I think this is straight down the middle of the fairway in that vein in terms of finding ways to grow and diversify the economy, which I know the governor is very much focused on. And is this the right bill for him? We'll see. If he signs it, we hope he gets the opportunity.
You think he's more of a Sony guy or a Warner Brothers guy? I'm kidding. I'm just kidding.
Come on.
Gentlemen, it's been a real pleasure talking to you about this. I appreciate your taking the time. You're both very busy men. Thanks for coming. And let's give them a round of applause, please.
Thank you.